All right. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host. My name is Mark. And today on the show, I've got a good friend of mine, Travis. Travis, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
Doing good. You can hear yourself in the headphones?
I sure can.
Yeah. Check it out, baby. You can hear the recovery band. Kick it, boys. You like that funk?
I like it.
Yeah. Studio audience. Oh, wait. They really like you.
Awesome, man. All you're missing is some cam laughter.
You know what? It's probably in there somewhere. I'm sure there is. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So, thank you very much for coming and doing service today and for sitting down with me. And so let's start with the basics. How long have you been doing recovery? Like, how long have you been doing the deal?
So I was introduced in recovery and really started to get sober back in 2013.
Okay.
I didn't physically get sober and this start to work for me. I currently have a little over 2 years right now. So,
2 years.
Correct.
Awesome. All right. So you started in 2013. You said 2013. What were you doing in the beginning?
And so, I live a pretty troubled life, a pretty troubled past. I started going to jail at a real young age, at the age of 13.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm currently 39.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, it's weird because, you hear a lot of people talk about they remember their first drink or they remember the first time that they used. But we know that drugs and alcohol is a symptom of the problem, right?
Yeah.
And so, I remember before I ever picked up a drink and I used, I remember being addicted to sugar and, being addicted to Doritos. I would go sounds so crazy, big fat boy move, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I can identify.
Yeah.
I can identify.
Yeah, and so, I would roll up the bag and put them in the cabinet, and then I would find myself going back to the bag and pulling them back out. Right?
Really?
And so I started to realize as I've gotten older and I've learned a lot about recovery, I've realized I had addictive behavior way before I ever picked up and used.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I guess, the twofold that they talk about where you're mentally and physically not well, right? Where we recover from a hopeless state of mind and body. And I guess I would not have been well back then, prior to me picking up. And I was trying to use other things and do other things to mask that at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so it did finally come out. I started drinking and using at the age of 12.
Oh, really?
And
before you went to jail?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I caught my first charge at 13, and it just spiraled out of control, man. I spent all of my childhood going in and out of juvenile jails and programs.
Oh, wow.
I checked into my first detox center when I was 16. And
really?
and I had a woman come to me, and she was about 39 or 40, and she said to me, I was in bad shape, man. I had a boil on my face. I looked horrible. And she said, I was your age when I first came here. And she said, just do what these people say and don't leave, and well, now I'm currently that woman's age. And I only have a little over 2 years of sobriety, and that's because I didn't listen.
Yeah.
And so I paid the price for a long time, man. What I had going on in my childhood, I never got a grip on, and it carried over into my adult years.
Yeah.
And so I kind of graduated from juvenile jails and juvenile programs to county jail to state prison.
Wow.
And so I just spent a lot of years in search for myself, trying to figure Travis out. And I really just didn't truly understand myself and the things that I did.
Yeah.
And it just took a lot of hard knocks and a lot of crisis for me to surrender in life and finally come to some sense.
Are you talking about surrender this past 2 years, or are you talking about before that, where you started to kind of...
Yeah, so the people I hear in the program that are one chip wonders, like my hat is really off to you guys.
I'm only still a chip wonder as of today.
Yeah, so that's not my experience. I wish it was, and relapse doesn't have to be part of your story. Unfortunately, it is for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, it really just comes down to me being in my own way. It says half measures availed us nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so, I just stood in my way for a lot of years, man. I kind of had an institutional mind, doing all that time and stuff as a kid and into my adult years. It's like when I would be free, well, that was the great thing about being free is Travis got to do what Travis wanted to do. I'm not incarcerated.
Yeah. What would that look like for you?
And so, not realizing that was ultimately what kept taking me back out.
Yeah.
And so if I had went to a job and the guy at the job had 25 or 30 years on that job, I would do everything that he told me to do because I wanted to do that job correctly and most efficiently in the right way.
All right.
Right. But when I came into sobriety and I have this guy that's 25 or 30 years sober and he's trying to tell me how to live my life and what to do, I don't want to listen.
Like, no way.
Right.
No way. This isn't going to work. Like, what was the thinking?
Exactly. And so, being incarcerated in and out for your entire life, I'm literally giving them life on the installment plan.
Yeah.
And so I'm used to a man telling me when I'm going to eat, when I'm going to sleep. He's going to turn my light on and off for me. They're going to feed me. They're going to tell me when I can use the bathroom. And so, well, when I am removed from that environment, the last thing I want to do is listen to more authority. Right?
Okay. So I'm going to do what I want, how I want it, and when I want it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I came into the program in 2013, by any means, it wasn't, I didn't get here on a winning streak like everyone else, and there were a lot of times, where the cuffs would be being put on, and I would think to myself, as they're patting me down, putting me in the back of the car, I would think, thank God this is over.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those times I was being rescued, not arrested.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy thinking about it, but that's really how it was. And so back in my addiction and all those years using, some of the freest times I had ever been in my life, I was incarcerated. I wasn't free at all.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
Okay.
And so finally in 2013, I got picked up on some charges and I went to the Sarasota County Jail. And I actually had landed there and I had broke down in the shower crying, and I cried out to God, to a creator greater than me, and which I had never known before, and I just really broke down warming up the shower and just said, God, I don't know if you're real or if you're alive, if you're a man or a woman or what you are, but if you're real and there's something out there, please help me. Okay. And so that was kind of a slow process. I realized not only did I surrender to the police at that time, I surrendered to a creator greater than me.
Okay.
Right. And so I was led to the Sarasota County Jail recovery dorm. And that's where this whole thing really started for me in 2013.
Okay. It was in the recovery pod.
Correct. In pod 5000. And so not only was I an inmate there, I actually went through that dorm 3 different times. But since I've been sober, I've been able to go back there, and the same pod in jail that used to house me as an inmate, I now bring service to and talk to other inmates about recovery.
So you do H&I, you take the message into them.
Absolutely.
What does that feel like for you?
It's amazing, man. To look at the same cells that I used to sleep in, and to talk to guys in orange that are struggling, not only is it therapeutic for me, but I realize I'm really able to reach some of them because really, well, I'm them and they're me.
Yeah.
The only difference is is, I'm recovered and sober, and they're at the beginning stages of where I used to be.
Okay. Yeah, and do you find it hard to, I mean, you can identify with them. Do you find it like you wanting to get through to them, and do you ever find yourself like getting frustrated if you don't? Like what's that like for you to go in and to speak with these men in this pod?
I hate to say this, but I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm gonna miss more people than I touch.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but that's probably the gist of it. I sponsor, as much as I can. I try to help guys as much as I can. I go back into that dorm if I'm needed, to work steps with guys. Although the foundation can be built inside the dorm and steps can be worked, I tell them guys all the time, look, you're going to do this in here to get sober, but you're going to have to do this out here to stay sober.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot that comes with that. Again, when, we talk about being mentally and physically different from other men, I'm a big fan of your show, and I've listened to a lot of people previous that you've had on here. And, I love what Danny and Paul C have to say, and they have a lot of strong recovery. But I don't agree with the twofold disease. I believe this is a threefold.
Okay.
This is a trifecta, right? And I'm spiritually sick first before I'm mentally and physically ill.
Okay.
Right. And it talks about that later on in the resentment parts. When you get into the 60s and 70s of the book, it really hits home on the spiritual concept of this program, right?
Okay.
And so it's not like a different entity from recovery. Like,
okay.
Right?
All right.
Right? Like,
all right.
Like I'm spiritually sick, and it's being shown through mental and physical capacities of my life.
Okay.
Right. And so we later realized that we're spiritually ill before the mental obsession takes place and you physically pick up.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And so it's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1 type deal.
Okay.
And so it does say, when spiritual malady is overcome, we then straighten out mentally and physically.
All right.
On page 64. And so that kind of goes back, and starts to lead into the emotional sobriety part of recovery.
All right.
I was abstinent from drugs and alcohol several different times in my life, even over the last 10 years before I have these 2 years sober. I'd been, I was clean for 17 months, 15 months, 11 months, 6 months, 8 months, a bunch of times. I was a chronic relapser. I lived in many different halfway houses. One for almost a 4-year period of time. The only place that I went was to that halfway house in a jail on a relapse, and it would take me months and months of time and get back out before I could ever try it again.
Yeah.
And so I paid the price numerous times for my actions, right? Being in my own way, doing things I wanted to do. Well, I'll take this, I'll listen to some of these suggestions, but I'm going to do this over here my way, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I continued to relapse and go back to jail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, why can't I get this thing, And I'm watching other people come in.
Half measure.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me a lot of time, to get out of my own way and to take the suggestions and to do what's required of me to stay sober. And there's a lot of work to be done in this program. I think going to meetings is great. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge that comes out of those meetings. I was introduced to a 12-step program by going to these meetings. I was introduced to my sponsor by showing up to meetings, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a real therapeutic value of one alcoholic shaking another alcoholic's hand, right? We share a common bond. But I have to tell you, the work is really in the steps, not the meetings.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I recover a relationship with God, myself, and other human beings.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I get emotionally sober. And that means being in control of my emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And so where I was controlled my entire life, and it's shown in my actions with jail, with drug use and alcohol use and women, and you know, I'm leaving my kids behind, and I'm wrecking houses and relationships and everything around me. It's shown that Travis was a mess, and Travis don't understand himself.
Yeah.
You know, and so now that I've worked all 12 steps, and I worked them very slow with a sponsor over the course of 33 months.
Oh, wow.
He actually left me on step 6 and 7 for about a year and a half.
Really?
And that was probably exactly what I needed. That was probably the best thing for me.
What'd you learn in 6 and 7?
Well, I learned a lot about myself and how to handle situations, right? And to react to situations, but to respond. And the difference is choice, you know? And I had to understand that all of my thoughts weren't of my own, you know, that I hear, and they're thoughts, they're not voices, you know. I hear thoughts of good, which I believe to be God consciousness, right?
Yeah.
I also hear negative thoughts, which I believe to be evil thoughts of Satan.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have thoughts of my own. All right. And so I hear thoughts and ideas come from 3 different entities.
All right.
All right. And sometimes they start to argue each other once in a while, you know.
It's got an argument going on in there.
Yeah, you know, that's the committee in the circus you hear people talk about in the rooms, right? They're having a meeting inside my head, you know? You know, I had to get those to quiet down, right? And that means I had to get in control of those. I had to get in control of my emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And, you know, it came through a lot of intensive work with another alcoholic and then working with me. And, you know, let me see here. You know, I believe if it's not growing, it's dying.
Yeah.
Right. And so I found this to be true in relationships, in teaching and working with other alcoholics, in relationships with my children, my relationship with my creator, right? Who I choose to call God. If it ain't growing, it's dying. So if I'm not feeding this in a positive manner, I'm doing the necessary work to work on that relationship, it's going to die. It starts to die, right? If I have a plant and I don't take care of that plant, what happens? It starts to die.
You gotta water it, right?
Right. Gotta water it, right? And so I've also found this with my thoughts, right? Every negative action begins with a negative thought. And so, well, if I don't feed that negative action or that negative thought, it doesn't become an action, right? It doesn't grow. Mm-hmm. I don't manifest and start to continue with negative behavior. Right. I ultimately smash it right at the idea.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would be lying to you if I told you I didn't have negative thoughts.
Well, I think everybody does it. We're human, right?
Yeah.
Like it comes on like today, like I was talking to you on the phone and I was like, hey, I'll be right back with you. I'll call you back. I'm on the phone with Verizon, right? All the negative thoughts spew into my head. And then I'm like, oh yeah, everybody understands, but nobody can help, right?
Right.
You know, it's like,
that's it, man. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you said it. And so, you know, I feed positively, you know, I feed myself mentally, spiritually, and physically, right? Where I harm myself in those 3 areas, I now feed it positively. You know, I spiritually, you know, I read literature, I pray. Okay. You know, mentally, I go to meetings. I work with other alcoholics, you know, and then physically, you know, I try to take care of myself. I go to the gym and I try to eat healthy, and so I feed myself positively to get those things to grow in a positive manner every day.
Yeah.
Those three things. And
Well, those are important. I notice when I eat like crap, I feel like crap.
absolutely.
So obviously, so you're taking care of your nutrition in recovery.
Absolutely. And I've become a tyrant in some ways. You can take these good traits too far. You really can.
I can identify with that. Tell me which ones you take too far. I gotta know.
Yeah. And so, I became a tyrant in a few different ways. Several years ago, when I was not emotionally sober, I was just abstinent from drugs and alcohol. I was in the gym like twice a day, and I would work out for like 2 hours at a time, bro. And I was just like out of control, and I exceeded taking over the counter supplements. I would well, I'll just be real honest here. I would bang testosterone.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And so but I think, well, it's all right because it's not Deca and it's not D-ball. They're not real steroids, right? Right.
So basically there comes the denial. Like that's a big character defect of mine, right? Like I gotta watch that shit, right? Like playing God and denial, and it's like, well, it's not this, and then it's like, no, motherfucker, it is.
That's it, and so, clearly I'm taking it too far, well, and I don't believe the gym is gonna kill me, but banging steroids probably will, it might,
Yeah,
and the spiritual end, I don't think that you can love God too much, on my end, but I think I've been guilty sometimes of shoving it down other people's throat. Okay. And I need to understand that by doing that, I'm going to create a missed opportunity, right? I need to let people grow and be who they are.
Okay.
Especially in this program,
Yeah. Well, I've learned, like, okay, when I first got sober, I heard somebody in a meeting talking about God, right? And I realized I had a God resentment. Mm-hmm. And it was before I'd worked the steps. I was just sober. It was after treatment. And I realized that I had a real big problem with God. And then I remember talking to my sponsor later on in the process. It was probably about this time last year. No, it was probably about February. I was in a meeting. I was sharing about God, and the meeting got quiet. And I was like... I shared about God and it got real quiet. I'm like, nobody shared anything. I was chairing the meeting, right? And he's like, listen, don't ever be afraid to share about God. Don't, because God is what got you sober and is keeping you sober, basically, is what he told me. But so when you're talking about you feel like sometimes you shove God down people's throats, all right, so give me an insight into that.
Yeah. So, again, it talks all through our literature, in the first 164 pages, it actually mentions the word God 281 times, right?
Okay.
And so as you even look at the steps, it only mentions power greater than yourself one time in step 2. After that, it's God as we understand him, and then him, right?
Yeah.
And so... I think it looks different for every alcoholic, and I'm not here to shove God down anyone's throat, right? But at the same time, the doorknob theory it's not a power greater than yourself. That doesn't work.
Okay. All right. Can I give you my theory on
please.
this one? Okay. So when I was in treatment, my higher power was a Dalai Lama book, right? The Art of Happiness, right? For some reason, this book was I clung to this book, right? And I was like, this is kind of my higher power right now, right? But the funny thing is because here's my problem. Before treatment, I would pray to God, God, please don't let me die, this and that, right? But here I come in, I've got a God resentment, right? So there's the ironic thing about it, right? But my higher power is this Dalai Lama book. I cling to it. And it was one thing after my pink cloudburst that kept me sober, holding on to that, right? And then I ended up, going to meetings. And eventually I was like, okay, I was able to say higher power. And then I was able to come in and say God. Like, yes, after I could kind of figure out what God meant to me, I was finally okay. I was comfortable with God. Like, I realized it's not a religious God. It's not like, like that hellfire and brimstone stuff.
That's
like,
it. Right.
so that's where I'm at. So whenever I hear people, say like, oh, well, my higher powers, this or that, or I look at their higher powers in that. Like to keep myself from getting all like your higher power can't be this. Because my sponsor and I have this argument we've sat around it. It wasn't really an argument, but a debate. He's like, well, Moses' higher power was a burning bush.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. And then I was told, a story about that from somebody else later on. But, I'm like, mine eventually turned into God. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, but everybody has their own views on that. So let it rip.
Sure. So, as a kid, like my mom would try to take me to church, and I was a Royal Ranger and be a member of a church. And I'm going to tell you right now, my mother did a wonderful job with me. She did the best she could. And I believe that parents do the best they know how. Yeah. Right. And,
I agree.
And so she had me plugged in and would have me go into these things. And so, if you asked me as a child, well, do you believe in God? I would tell you yes. Right. But did I really? Was I praying? Was I in His Word? Did I really have a relationship?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with that. Like, did I really, truly? And saying and actually believing are two different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so again, if it's not growing, it's dying.
Yeah.
Right. I can say all the right things, but what I do ultimately is what matters. We hear talk's cheap, and the book says, we judge ourselves by our intentions while the world was judging us by our actions. Yeah. Right. And so again, if I'm not putting work into that relationship, well, do I really know Him? Is it really growing? And so
that's true.
That's true. And so, she did the best that she could. And, it's just, it was tough, man, because I'm going to tell you, most people don't, when they're desperate and you're in a crisis, I love this program, don't get me wrong, but people don't fall to their knees crying, begging AA to help them. They don't. They fall to their knees crying, begging God, begging something that they don't believe in. They cry out to that.
I know I can identify with that. I know that well. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying nobody falls to their knees like, oh, doorknob, please help me.
Exactly. Right. And so I did the same thing in my jail cell. If you ask me if I believe in God, yes, but did I really? No. But in my jail cell, when I'm in the middle of it pouring down rain, a crisis, I don't understand myself. I can't stay out of jail. Right. I break down crying, warming up the shower. I cry out to something that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's where it started to get real with me. And I realized when I got real with God that day in my jail cell, God got real with me. Okay.
And right. So you're talking about back in 2013 when you got real with God.
Correct.
Okay. So then what happened when you got out of jail and before this 2 years now? So like, what was that like for you? So God got real with you.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, he's kind of like the anchor and I'm kind of in the boat adrift, right?
God doesn't have character defects.
Right. And he's the anchor, and boy, I sure have drifted from that anchor pretty far at times.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right. But it's funny, he always has a way of reeling me back in, okay, yeah. And it's it's mind-boggling at times. I just don't understand myself and the things that are going on around me. Yeah. And when you start to feed that God consciousness, it starts to grow. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, and through working through the 12 steps, I was launched into a fourth dimension, into a spiritual realm I never knew existed.
Okay.
Right, and that probably looks different from for everybody.
Oh, it does. It totally does.
Sure. And so it's yeah, it's turned into a huge part of my sobriety.
Yeah.
It is pretty much the main ingredient. You know, I feed all three types of harm: spiritual, mental, and physical. And finally today I'm emotionally sober because I had a good sponsor that worked the steps with me slowly.
Yeah.
You know, until I got in touch with my feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm. What was like the biggest, hardest step for you? What was it? I've heard people say I struggle on 4. You know, like sometimes I still struggle with 3. Like I still want to play God a little bit, right? And I'm like, I got to stop, you know, doing those things. But like, what was the biggest struggle for you? Like, which step was the hardest for you?
Probably 6 and 7.
Yeah, character defects.
Yeah, and that's why he left me on it so long.
All right. So 6 and 7.
Probably.
Yeah.
I did finally read that book, Drop the Rock.
Oh yeah, that's a good book.
It was a really good book, and so that really helped me, you know. But I remember calling him in the midst of the storm, you know, and I would do it would be really bad. And I would really be looking for some guidance and leeway here. And I would call him and he would kind of kick me, you know, like, hey, get in touch with your inner self.
Yeah. I used to call somebody and they're like, well, did you pray about it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, come to think of it, no.
Yeah.
But I was just told, go to God.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the main, you know, that really is my first move, you know, is to a creator greater than me. And then if we're not able to solve that and I'm not able to get right and I feel, then I call a sponsor, you know, I work the program, I call someone else in recovery, I read some literature. And if none of those things work, I remember just hang on, you know, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
You know, the 12 and 12, it says, you know, it talks about old behaviors. And when these crop up, right? It doesn't say if or maybe, it says when, right? When these behaviors crop up, we immediately take action, right? We pause, we pray, we discuss, we amend, you know, and then if all else fails, you know, you hang on.
Yeah.
You know,
I found, I had a sponsor, he once called me and he wanted relationship advice. and he was a newcomer and I'm like, I don't think I'm in a position to give relationship advice. You know, I really don't, because guess what I wrecked more than anything in my life? I'm like, well, you know, go to God.
Right. That, which is probably the best advice that you can give someone.
I found I don't like to give advice. It's just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. That would be like me giving marital advice, and I've never been married.
So yes, that is true. It's I don't give marital advice either. So look, so what parts of your program do you find yourself working on the most today? Like obviously you spent all this time on character defects and they still pop up.
Sure.
But what do you find yourself working on the most in your program of recovery?
Yeah, you know, I'm still growing at a couple years sober, you know, I'm still like a sponge, and it's like I'm learning still every day, which is really amazing. I guess in life you don't ever stop learning, but you seem, you know, in sobriety, you think, you know, you hear people say, well, staying sober is a lot easier than getting sober. And I feel like I'm still in that phase of getting sober at 2.5 years clean.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
So I'm constantly learning, man, and you know, and I've changed sponsors a few times just to get another perspective on things and how they're worked and how they're said and what's being done. You know, and that's been beneficial to me as well.
Okay.
With constantly learning, but I probably, I struggle with anger for a lot of years,
I can identify well with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it intensified when I got clean. Like the drugs and alcohol when they were finally, when it was gone, I realized I had an anger issue.
Oh, me
Right?
too.
Yeah. so 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 I'm not sure, if I had a Napoleon complex or I just had a bad attitude.
Did you see that movie? No. Have you seen that yet? You saw the preview for it, right? Napoleon? Have you seen that? There's a new Napoleon movie out.
I have.
And I went and saw that, and now I understand what Bill was talking about he felt like Napoleon returning from Elba, no St. Helena for me. And I'm like, because I should have known that from my years in history class, but I'm like, I don't remember anything about this.
Yeah.
And so I fully got the gist of that, like a total egomaniac.
That's it, man. And, doing time since I was a kid too, and being short, I fought a lot. Yeah. I always felt like someone was trying me. And back then, I had something to prove, and as I get older, like I don't have nothing to prove. As a matter of fact, I'm like, you got that, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep all my teeth today. Leave me alone.
So you're having to like practice a whole new set of principles in your life.
Yeah. It's, again, when the drugs and alcohol are removed, all I was left with was my emotions and feelings. Mm. And to be honest with you, that was the root cause why I used and drank and why I punched people and acted out and hurt other people, was because I was hurt, right? I had no control over my emotions and feelings. Yeah. And so, those still kind of crop up today. I realize, at certain times, I got real bad anxiety, and I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. Right.
What does anxiety look like for you?
It's like, it's a feeling I get in my chest. Right. And it's almost at times, like, it's almost to the point where, like, I can't breathe. It's that bad.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I don't know if it's from doing time when I was a kid or being locked up all the time or the drugs and the alcohol and all the stuff that I did. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but I've struggled with it my entire life. And finally, into my adult years, I had some professionals that were able to kind of put their finger on it. They're like, you got some issues going on that need to be addressed. All right. And I'm going to be honest with you.
By all means.
Yeah. AA has really put a lot of that in perspective for me. Yeah. Right. AA has allowed me and gave me the awareness to know what's going on with me at all times. Mm-hmm. And so when these things crop up or, I'm feeling upset or angry or I can't accept people or situations for who they are, I immediately know.
Yeah, well, it says that in AA taught him to handle sobriety. It's a story on page 553. It says, when I had been in AA only a short while, an old-timer told me something that has affected my life ever since. AA does not teach us how to handle our drinking. He said it teaches us how to handle sobriety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically helped you learn how to just live sober.
Completely has taught me a new way of life.
Yeah. Alcohol is a huge part of my story, but I'm going to be honest with you. I spent over 10 years on and off the street smoking crack cocaine. Yeah. And my children's mother was a prostitute. I'm 41. I stole everything that wasn't bolted to the ground. The things that we did to obtain drugs and alcohol is not human, and today, 10 years later, that's the further, you wouldn't even recognize. I would have never known that about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy who used to tell me, he's like, you never know who you're sitting next to in an AA meeting.
It's wild, right?
Yeah, right. It is. Like, I would have never thought. But alcohol wasn't my only issue. Yeah. And drugs, were not my only issue. Like
Right.
there was so many things that were my issue. Like I can identify with you on some of that.
Yeah.
And so I would have never thought.
That's awesome, man. And thank God I don't see it today neither, and I've had, I like I said, I speak, I talk to people at the jail and I do other things, and I've actually had parents come to me, and they're like, do you think that you can help my son or daughter? And the first thing I say to them is, I don't know, do they want help?
Well, you gotta want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not for those that need it.
Right. It's for those who really want this thing and are willing to do the work. This is an action program.
It is, right? When I was out of treatment, I saw people like sitting in treatment, right? They were like, I'm never going to do this again. This is the last time. And it's like, bam, relapse,
Yeah.
and just dropping like flies. And it's like, that taught me you got to do something about the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the problem's me.
That's it, man. It goes back to the emotions and feelings, and not being in control of those. And, years ago, if you would have hooked me up to a lie detector test, I would have passed. Like I truly wanted to stop and truly meant it. But within a year or two and getting everything back, I would give it all back away again. And I would be sitting back in jail and I would be thinking to myself, how in the world did this happen again?
Yeah.
Right. And it was truly, I just didn't understand myself. And today I understand that, well, without a higher power and without working the 12 steps and being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm doomed.
Yeah. Yeah. Honesty was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And it was, I had to get honest with what happens when I put that first drink or drug in my body, but I also had to get honest about, the things that I had done in life. And I learned how to love myself. Like I had to learn to love myself. Like, do you feel at 2 years that you love yourself?
Absolutely. I never cared about myself before. I think that's why all of that happened. I didn't have integrity because I didn't care about you, more or less care about me.
Yeah.
Right. And I constantly went to jail and did all that nonsense, and I finally started to take some initiative over my life and wanted a better life for myself. And then AA showed me how to do that and helped me relearn how to live. Right. They loved me until I couldn't love myself. And now I truly love me. I just want to be the best me that I can be for everyone, more or less,
Yeah.
Hopefully one day I'm a husband to a beautiful woman, and I'm a father to a child, and I'm a good son to a mother.
Yeah.
And just a upstanding, grateful member of AA, man.
Yeah. That's, it is, I feel like, we been rewarded this chance to kind of get things right in life. And so with you, it sounds like you don't waste any opportunity in life anymore.
No, man, this recovery thing is really a gift. I've been given a life beyond my wildest dreams, I never saw my life, in my active addiction, I never saw me doing the things that I'm doing today and being sober.
Yeah.
Right. And now I sit here with a couple years and my life is completely changed. And now I can't even picture my life like that ever again. Right. And I even think about my own story. Sometimes it doesn't even feel real. It doesn't even seem like that was me. It is so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah, like the change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that people say like notice the change before, like I noticed a change, right? Like, did you have the same kind of experience?
Yeah, I think I've let other people be the judge of that. Like I'm not running around telling people I've changed. I've
changed so much.
Yeah, like and that's it, right? And so I let other people be the judge of that,
Yeah.
but I've had people recently, have said, wow, Travis, you've really grown a lot. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm involved in AA and I love God, man, and I couldn't be any more happier to be where I'm at today.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So before we head out and end this thing for the day, what do you got for the newcomer?
Well, I would say listen to your peers. Don't do what I did, and get out of your own way, man.
Yeah.
Just when they give you suggestions, they're clear-cut directions. And when they tell you no relationships in the first year, it's not because they don't want you to find love. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They want you to be happy and to live a luxurious life, right? But they do that for your own protection because, well, with failed relationships comes huge resentments.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get into this discussion. It's like, okay, hold okay, so when I first came in AA, they're like, get a sponsor, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, yeah, I'm not gonna have somebody tell me what meetings to go to. The egomaniac, right? So this is the egomaniac me. Nobody's gonna tell me I can't date for a year, right? Like,
Huge mistake.
look, that was the only suggestion I didn't take.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm just gonna shut up.
Yeah, I'm going to be real honest with you, man.
Yeah.
I've been celibate the last 33 months.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And in the beginning, it was really tough, but I started to realize I finally took the suggestion after 8 years of failing.
Okay.
Right? I finally said no relationships in the first year when the sponsor told me that. I said, all right.
So you did something different.
I did something different finally. And so in the beginning, it was real tough. It was kind of against my will. I wasn't sure if I agreed to it, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not.
Yeah. Well, it's good to get this perspective, right? Because everybody seems to have different perspectives. Like, people like definitely don't. Some people are like do, but don't. It's like I hear these different things. I know I didn't. So it's
right.
But I have seen people go back out because of a failed relationship.
That's it. And ultimately, they didn't take the time and do the work to be emotionally sober. Right. And so they're still being controlled by their emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I say I've been abstinent from drugs and alcohol at times in my life because I was clean, not sober. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Right. There's clean from drugs and alcohol, and then there's emotional sobriety.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, the relationship part, I finally, I decided, I started to realize in time over these last 33 months that if I would start to engage in a relationship with a woman, or which I had done numerous times in the past within the year, like clearly didn't listen. But this time I finally did. And I realized after time that if I did engage in a relationship, or even if I had intercourse with her, right, and we got intimate, that ultimately my attention would be automatically onto her and how I can make her happy, and I would take it off myself.
Oh, okay.
And the focus from taking care of Travis and working on Travis will be gone. Right?
I respect that.
Yeah.
Like that much respect on that.
And so where you only have to do a year, I did 3. Yeah. So I would say that to the newcomer.
Well, look, everybody's different, and I think in that aspect,
Yeah.
and so like when I had a sponsee, like relationship advice, I'm just like I just simply say, well, do you think you're fit to be in a relationship? Like look at yourself honestly in the mirror and go to God.
That's it,
It's I'm like I don't know, but no, I see your perspective on that. Like I respect that you gave your perspective on that. I think that that's huge. Instead of just saying, well, why not? I like that you backed that up.
Yeah,
like that's good. Like that sounds like some real world experience on it.
It is, man. And I've had some wonderful teachers along the way. I've had some really good mentors and some really good sponsors, right? And there's a mentor that I have, and he would say all the time, you're probably not going to meet your dream girl living at a halfway house or a homeless shelter.
Hey, baby. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. You know, and he's been right. You know, I've even witnessed people get together and one relationship lasted several years and they had kids, you know, and then it failed. Right. And so it's just proven true. You know, everything you hear in these rooms and everything that is said, you know, it rings true. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, it's been good to sit down and talk with you today. I see you brought your big book. Do you have something before we go? Do you have anything like you absolutely love in the big book? I see you brought yours with. I like that, by the way, that pen setup you have on it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you even got the dictionary too. Oh, and meeting in a pocket.
Yeah.
What's meeting in a pocket mean for you?
So you can have a meeting anywhere.
Yeah, I love that little booklet.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so it has like a vision for you, the preamble and the steps, how it works. So you can sit and have a meeting anywhere. It's all the literature that you normally have in any AA meeting in this little pocket book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Meeting in a pocket. Now, see, this is green, and the ones I have are red.
All right.
Yeah, they were given to me on the other coast, and they came in a red.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, the willingness prayer, men's prayer, inventory prayer,
Yeah.
morning prayer, nightly prayer, seventh. It's got all the prayers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna admit to my slack assness here. I've been given these meetings in a pocket. I've never once cracked a meeting in a.
Well, I tell you what, you can keep that one.
Oh no, I have like 3 of them.
All right. I got you.
The Big Book Dictionary. I like the Big Book Dictionary.
Yeah.
That's cool. It helps you understand some of those old timey words.
Big time, you know. Glumlot, I heard the other day. You know,
We're not a glum lot.
Yeah, you know, like I'm kind of stupid, you know. I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know? You know, I'm street smart, not academically smart. You know?
So it has glum in there.
Yeah, you know,
right.
and so I finally, you know, I was able. I won this actually at the Jesus central office held a little get together a few weeks ago, and I showed up there and won this in a raffle, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so when I looked up the word glumlot, you know, it says that we're not a like a shameless group, or not like a how did they put it here?
Done cracking. Let's hear the definition of glum lot.
Here, it's not like a grumpy bunch kind of.
I'm so
Here we are, glumlot.
Somewhere.
Yeah, here it is. A gloomy group or cheerless bunch.
Ooh, a gloomy group.
Yeah. So, like, you know, I heard someone say it in the meeting, you know, we're not a glum lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man. So this dictionary has really come in handy.
All right. I like how you pair it up, and then you got the pen holder, and you got the big book. So, all right. So do you have something you want to hit out of the book?
Yeah, you know, it's in the doctor's opinion where it talks about the allergy, right?
All right, done. You have me a doctor's opinion.
Yeah. And so
There is a doctor, and he has an opinion. Let's go to this here.
Yeah.
Which page here?
it's 24, 25,
Let's see.
XXV.
XX is XXV III?
Okay.
Yeah, 28.
All right, 28.
Somebody told me, like, I used to tell people, it's like, it's on XXV III. They're like, that's 28. I'm like, but it says it in Roman numerals. They're like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. So, where is it here? It says, you know, it talks about I'm not sure exactly where it is, where it talks about the allergy.
Oh, here, yeah.
Here we are.
XXV,
Yeah, this is it.
Wait, is it XX? Yeah, it's right here. Right there.
Yes. It talks about emotional appeal, seldom suffices, but here it says, after they men and women drink essentially because they like the effects produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems to be the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontent until they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desired again, as so many do, the phenomenon of craving develops. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. And it says, this is repeated over and over again unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery.
Yeah.
Right. And that is exactly what me and you have talked about here and what I've told you about in my story.
Yeah.
Where it was just history just kept repeating itself over and over and over again.
Yeah, I can identify.
And thank God, you know, that this program is in place to help people like me recover, you know, from the trifecta.
Yeah. Here, the complete entire psychic change.
That's it.
That is. Like, that psychic change
Right.
is huge.
And people are like, well then how do I get that? You know, well, you get that from going through the 12 steps with a sponsor.
Yeah.
You will get an entire psychic change and be launched into a fourth development.
Oh, dimension?
Dimension. There you go. You got to edit that.
Hey, you know what? No, we're going to leave that shit in there because we're not perfect, right?
This hasn't been a perfect show at all.
No, you know, but no, it's been a good one. It's been an insightful one. See, because I've learned that hey, we all look at things, you know, we all have our own way of looking at things.
Sure.
You know, and I know that, you know, that now I know some things about Travis that I've never known.
Sure.
And, you know, and that's why I love connecting with other alcoholics and people in the program and to sit down and talk about recovery because I got some whole new perspectives today. It's all about perspective. And you know, the amazing part is that this today had a 100% success rate. And
Awesome.
no time did I drink or drug during. Did you drink or drug during
Not
this?
at all. Didn't even think about it.
No. Yeah. So now you're gonna have fun in traffic after this. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me know how that works out for you when you get home.
Give me a chance to work on 6 and 7 some more.
So, hey, Travis, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for your service, and thank you for being a new friend of mine in recovery.
Absolutely, man. I just want to tell you, dude, I think that you have an amazing gift, and what you're doing here is truly helping a lot of people, man. And I'm really grateful to have you as a friend. Thank you for letting me share.
Hey, man, hey, you're the one telling the story today, so
Awesome.
there you go. So, all right, the recovery band, they're looking at me. They're stuck outside of this little room, you know, and they're wanting to play so they can go home. So, all right, man, boys, kick it. Yeah, you like that? I swear I will fire you.
I love it.
Learn a new song. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Goodbye and be well.